Next question says, it can be inferred that when the author refers to eminent domain, he means. The answer to this question is found in the penultimate paragraph. It says, in 2013, landlord tried to reach out to these people by undoing a draconian colonial act more suited to 19th century empire than to a 21st century vibrant democracy. At the heart of 2013 law was the provision of seeking the consent of those whose land were to be acquired and of caring for those whose livelihoods would be destroyed in the process. Undoing these provisions is a virtual resurrection of undiluted powers of eminent domain, which the 1894 law conferred to the state. Let's look at the options. Option A says, the provision to seek consent from those whose land were to be acquired is mentioned although in the same paragraph, but this is not what the author means by eminent domain. By eminent domain, the author essentially means that state has power to acquire whatever it wants to acquire from the private owners, and hence option B becomes correct, which says the power of the state to acquire land forcibly from the owners of private property. Option C says the inevitability that the land owned by people would eventually be up for acquisition by a state. This is not an inevitable conclusion of the given text. It essentially means that the state should have taken consent of the people whose land it is acquiring. If it's forcible, that is what the author objects to. Option D says land has more eminent and powerful use when it's acquired for government use. The use of land is more productive or more eminent or more powerful when in private property, or if it is in government use, is not commented on. So author does not compare these two, so we cannot really comment on whether it would be more eminent or powerful when it's in government use. The correct answer to this question hence becomes option B. The next question says, which of the following options would go against the argument in the passage? The correct answer to this option is the correct answer to this question is option D. Option D is not mentioned in the passage and also cannot be inferred from any area of the passage. Option D says that the last 2 decades have seen a man-made agrarian crisis that has been unprecedented. Although the second paragraph talks about the National Crime Record Bureau, this is something that has never happened before in Indian history. Look at the last line of the paragraph. This does not mean that the agrarian crisis that we are talking about is man-made. Hence option D cannot be inferred from the passage. Rest all the 3 options can be inferred. Option A, although not directly stated, can be inferred from the last lines of the passage. It says determining the social impact of a project can help government understand if the proposed project is necessary. Throughout the passage, author has talked about that we need to understand forcible land acquisition in light of the fact that we have not been able to settle people that have got displaced. And for government, it would be better if that understanding comes and they take decisions based on that kind of understanding. Hence option A is correct and will not go against the argument in the passage. Option B says many people are rightly concerned about the cost of decisions taken in development projects. A lot of people, author has mentioned, believe that the development had come at their own cost, and hence this option can again be inferred from the passage. Option C says that if we want to acquire the land of farmers to serve larger goals, the projects in which they are embodied must not be of the kinds that repeat the mistakes of past. This again is what the passage says. Passage says that we need to learn from the mistakes of past and develop policies and laws which are in favor of everybody, and hence the correct answer to this question becomes option D. Let's look at the last question in this passage. It says, which of the following options is best solution that the author seems to suggest at the end of the passage? Let's read the last paragraph again. Last paragraph says, I do not dispute the fact that there can be many situations where land is needed for development project that could actually benefit those whose land are being acquired. What could be the possible harm in seeking the prior informed consent of these people after making the effort of explaining to them how they should stand to benefit? There are those who argue that farmers would be better off giving up farming. Indeed, they say farmers do not want to farm anymore. Why would these farmers conceivably say no if we were to propose more attractive and tangible alternate options to them in return for their land? Is it not for farmers to assess whether the project will actually be of benefit to them and whether the recompense offered to them is fair bargain? So author is saying that we need to talk to these people whose land we are acquiring and give them viable alternatives and also let them decide if this is better for them. Let's look at our options here. Option A says the government must listen to farmers and allow them to suggest solutions to land acquisition issues. This is exactly what the last paragraph is also talking about, hence option A can be correct. Let's look at option B. Option B says social provisions must be made for those farmers who are to be affected by land acquisition policy of the government. The author also suggests that these farmers are allowed to make an informed choice about their own land. Social provisions are not really talked about as a solution. So what is talked about is that these farmers are offered alternates which are viable, and the farmers need to decide whether this is a good alternate for them. Option C says that compensation to farmers must be commiserated to the cost that they incur as a result of giving up their land. Again, the author has not talked about this. Author has talked about that the farmer should be happy with the compensation that is given to him, and the farmer should be able to decide whether this is the right compensation for them or not. Option D says malpractices in land acquisition should be checked with setting up of regulatory body. This again has not been commented by the author. Hence the correct answer to this question will become option A.